What are the Bucks getting in Myles Turner, and where does this rivalry rank? We check in on the Pacers side with Tony East coming up after this on today's Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia. You can hear me throughout the course of the season on the Bucks Radio Network. Joined today with a Pacers perspective from Tony East, who you can find on Locked On Pacers, covering the Pacers and the Fever for Forbes. You can find Tony everywhere. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. And right now, it's time. Football season around the corner. Visit FanDuel and their app today and start planning your future bets now. So already, over a month ago now, Tony, time flies.
Wow.
Myles Turner, the big shocker in the offseason, going to the Bucks. So I guess let's start Game 7 for the Pacers. The reporting that came out beforehand that, hey, the Pacers are ready to go into the tax. They're prepared to pay upwards of $30 million for Myles Turner, and it doesn't happen. I think obviously what happened a few minutes into Game 7 probably had something to say there.
I would agree with that. I think that, as Kevin Pritchard, their president, has said, that they were willing, I believe him, that they were willing to go into the tax because maybe this year it would have been yucky because it wouldn't be that great without Tyrese Haliburton. But 2 years from now, yeah, you want the team that made the finals and has that sort of ceiling to be intact. They haven't paid the tax in ages. But he talked about the apron restrictions being what they would have been concerned about more so than the tax. Yeah. Obviously, though, when the ceiling of your team drops immensely, right, you have to at least reconsider what your spending is. And I think that led them to maybe more negotiation than they would have had if Haliburton did not get hurt, if they had won the game, any sorts of directions you could point that arrow, because it was a big change in their reality. And as the Bucks have kind of danced around, honestly, in the Giannis era, the tax is like one thing. The repeater is when it gets dicey. And so you want to start the tax clock, if you're going to pay it, at a smart time. Is it a really smart time to go way into the tax? So there's new spending rules this year. If Haliburton gets hurt, like they still should have, to be clear. But no, it's at least a different consideration. So I think Game 7 changed things. That said, I still think they would have preferred to have Myles Turner on their team and not their current biggest rival.
Well, and I think Camille and I talked about this early into the process too. How much of it, I mean, I suppose, do you know, or is the speculation, how much of it was also, you look at the landscape of free agency, and if you're the Pacers, there was no murmurs or rumblings that the Bucks were going to do this, and you observe the landscape and say, well, it's maybe the Pistons can create cap space. I don't think they're going to be in the market for Myles Turner. The Nets do, but I don't know if he's going to want to go there unless they blow him away. That realistically, who else can really offer him this? So this is what we're going to come in with our offer.
Detroit was like a murmur Naz Reid Myles team for a second, right? And then the Malik Beasley thing happened and they stayed over the cap. And so the first day of free agency, and like front offices know this 10 million years before us, but like even us and the public found out, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is taking that Atlanta trade exception. The Nets used a bunch of their cap space on Michael Porter Jr., and the Pistons got Karis LeVert, which meant they either were using cap space or staying over the cap. And in my head, I'm like, it's over, right? There's nowhere else for Myles Turner to get even close to his market value. And so, again, obviously spending was a factor the tax and the injuries were a factor in the Pacers thinking of starting negotiations where they did. And I wonder, and I bet they would say they regret it a little bit now. But I also think they said, and Pritchard talked about in his press conference, that they look around for shadow cap space teams that could, if they do something dramatic, do that. So maybe the Bucks, they knew it was a possibility, but I mean, I don't even think you expected this. Like no one expected that to be on the table. And so I think after those first three moves were set in stone, it was like, yep, it's over. There's nowhere else for him to go. They maybe are ironing out some details. It'll be fine. I even did a podcast the first night. The Pacers did nothing. I was like, yeah, it's probably just some negotiating thing. It's a weird scenario where they kind of both have leverage. And then we saw what happened. So, yes, I think that the dynamics of free agency also were a big factor in this because nobody thought, especially after that first day, that it was even possible for him to leave.
No, when we saw the report come through that
I immediately was like, is this a Kuzma sign and trade? What? Like, how is this possible?
that's where we immediately went to. When you see Myles Turner is coming to the Bucks, our immediate thought was, who are they trading in this sign and trade here to bring him over? And then it was probably 5 minutes later, you see the report that Damian Lillard is waived and stretched. I mean, it stunned all of us that were on the Bucks side of things to see him come over. It's funny too, because, we'll get into the player that the Bucks are getting and somebody that you obviously know very well and having covered him the last handful of years. It's a name that would come up all the time from Bucks fans of, well, just go get Myles Turner. And obviously there was a feeling about Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez was clearly not the guy that he once was anymore, but Myles Turner is the name that would come up all the time of, just go get Myles Turner. He's the perfect Brook Lopez replacement. And I think, Camille and I and Frank and everybody else that would get that question would say, yeah, he is, but how are the Bucks going to do this? There's no route to doing that. So to see it come to fruition, I guess, look, you got me. I was wrong. There was a way to do it.
Yeah, that's certainly true. And I think that we'll get to this, but the whole aspect the Pacers have said, and I believe this to be true, about not getting a chance to match it. Yeah. Some of it is just that you've been around a bunch of free agencies, like even with way less good players than Myles Turner, teams are like, we have this offer, but you have like 5 minutes, right, to decide. Yeah. Enes Kanter talked about that being the case with Portland years ago. I never will forget that, right? So I think that's part of it anyway, because they don't want teams to be able to match their offers for an unrestricted guy. But the other part of this is because, like, if it gets out that they considered waiving and stretching Dame and didn't get the player they were going to get from it, like they'd look terrible. And they're currently not courting, but like keeping up their PR with their star, as you know and have talked about a million times. So like,
which one is that?
Yeah, right. So it had to happen like that. Like if they're going to get Myles, they have to be like, look, you have to accept this on this phone call, right? And like that is another factor that made this the case, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you just even if it would have come out that the Bucks were in discussions with Myles Turner and nothing else came from that, at some point you have to try to unwind this. And if you're Dame's agent or somebody else, you're thinking,
right,
how are you going to make cap space for that? I don't think that the Pacers were going to do a sign and trade for Kyle Kuzma or something else. So how was this going to be the case? And at some point it would start to come out of, this is what the Bucks were going to do to bring a Myles Turner. So in that sense, I get it. That it was the same thing they did when they traded for Dame, basically telling the Suns or telling the Blazers, you can tell Phoenix it's this position and it's this salary range. You cannot go any further than that. Otherwise,
you can imply that it's Grayson Allen, but you cannot say. You know what's funny? Is like,
say he went to an ACC school, but that's it.
No, but I was doing this joke with somebody years ago. Like, how many ways could you describe Grayson Allen where they're like, is it Pat Connaughton? Like, it would have got pretty far down the line before they realized which one it was.
All right, so that's what led us to here with Myles Turner leaving the Pacers and coming to the Bucks in one of the more stunning moves we've seen here in free agency. But what are the Bucks getting, and what's the outlook for the Pacers and this rivalry? We'll get into those questions coming up after this. Well, August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. Take a flyer on the Jordan Love MVP race or crown your champion Green Bay Packers to win the Super Bowl in August, or parlay your division winner dark horses. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. So the guy that the Bucks are getting, Myles Turner, I mean, I think everybody has said, hey, you got a better, younger version of Brook Lopez. First and foremost, how accurate is that?
Yeah, the stuff that Brook Lopez, especially in his heyday, was the best at, Turner is very good at. I mean, look, Bucks fans actually know Myles Turner pretty well, right? Like, they played him 4 times a year plus playoff series. for years. Like they don't have to speculate and be like, pretend they watched the Pacers. Like they actually did. So he is, I would say peak Brook Lopez was maybe a better defender than Turner was the last couple years, but Turner's a better shooter. I think the difference is that Turner has way more toward the rim pressure, right? He can actually shot fake, put it on the floor, score, turn around, Dirkish shot. Like, I'm taking a bunch of those. But he can make that, right? Like he got a lot better, especially playing with Halliburton the last couple years at not just being a pop big. And Lopez was like a good post-up guy to end last season a little bit, but Turner is much more of a 3-level guy. But to answer the question specifically, like high level, yes, like better in recent years, much better Brook Lopez in terms of good defender, really nice shooter, space it out. And that kind of player is basically additive to any other 4 players around him.
Yeah, I agree with the offensive assessment. I mean, I think Brook is obviously a better post player than Myles Turner, but Myles better shooter. He took a higher volume of threes than Brook did last year, even. And the mid range, I mean, that's where he killed the Bucks in that series and rolling to the rim. Where Brook's game, he could be a very streaky 3-point shooter and had that post presence, but anything in between was just always a work in progress. He had that kind of one-handed floater shot he was working on. Everybody would cite his foot speed, which is fair at 37 years old. I don't know what the expectations are. I think Myles Turner is certainly much more athletic and quicker at this point than Brook Lopez is, but he's probably closer to Brook Lopez than like a Jericho Sims type, right?
Yeah, for sure. He's not like not athletic. He has this like kind of goofy gait. But I think that's probably true. I would say, but he's just so like he's kind of mastered his movements, if that makes sense. Like I actually think the Bucks series 2 years ago is the biggest highlight of their differences. Like Pascal Siakam goes crazy in games 1 and 2, and the Bucks are like, crap, we have to switch that matchup. And young Myles Turner could not have done well with a 4 on him. Like he could not have found ways to score differently than just being a stretch big. But in that series, when he was being guarded by the Portises, and why can't I remember who was starting next to Lopez in that series because Giannis was out. Regardless, their other front court player, like he just scored, like in the mid range, like you're saying, in the post sometimes. Like they used him as a screener more than Siakam because that front court matchup was switched, and it worked very well. And so it's not like, oh my gosh, he's so fast or jumping out of the gym athleticism, but he has like a lot of function to the stuff that he can do, which is enough to create his own space or get by guys. He's not a great screener, but because he has those weapons, he can't be ignored all the time just as a shooter.
No, I mean, not a great screener. He's going to fit in well in the front court with the Bucks. Then is basically what you're saying. Is there any? So you brought up how he played off of and how he really excelled playing next to Halliburton and really all the guys that the Pacers can throw out there handling the ball and running the offense. Do you look at that and have any concern and say, I think he needs a strong point guard to set him up in those spots? And there's questions there with the Bucks.
Yeah, Halliburton made him a lot better, right? That's very obvious. And even Tyrese has talked about, it's very funny because he's being honest because of the specific players he references. He thought in Sacramento his perfect pick and roll partner would be Rashawn Holmes. And I'm like, the fact that you'd admit that means you're telling the truth. Not that Rashawn Holmes sucks or anything, but he's like, but then having Myles, a guy who can pop and roll and just knows the spacing and geometry of where to go after a screen is very helpful to him. And so obviously Ty is a brilliant get off the ball quickly, set up his teammates passer. Giannis is a good passer. Like it has stuck with me for forever that Giannis described himself as a pass first player in that series against the Pacers 2 years ago when they were forming the wall. Or no, it was a regular season game. Yeah. When they were forming the wall against him all the time. I think they specifically will have a nice partnership, but they certainly no one on the Bucks is as good as a passer of Tyrese Halliburton. Honestly, unless your name's Nikola Jokic, nobody in the NBA is as good of a passer as Tyrese Halliburton. He might be number one, right? So that will be different in that he will know what space to get to or how to get himself open on plays. It's can the Bucks get him the ball? Giannis probably will be able to, especially because he draws a bunch of gravity. The other guys is where the questions will come. But yes, Halliburton specifically certainly played a part in his improvements. And I think specifically where you see that is not even the shooting, it's the rim finishing. He wasn't ever a bad finisher. And he really kind of crescendoed his in the lane ability the year that Halliburton got to Indiana. But he was like high 60s, low 70s at the rim his first 5 years. And then with Halliburton, it was almost 80, 78, 76, 75, right? That really changed a lot for him, is being more threatening there. And so that's where I think him and whoever the passing is going to need to help him, is for him to continue to be more than a shooter. He's got to get good chances at or near the basket. And that's where the passing will help him the most.
Going back to what we were talking about before with that series 2 years ago, I mean, how dare you forget the names of Danilo Gallinari and Jay Crowder?
Yes,
I'm trying to think about who else
a
was
Puerto Rican
playing.
champion, Justin. How did we forget? I did forget that.
What a makeup that team was 2 years ago.
I love Gallo, but in that series, like, this is the slowest good player I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, I think when the Bucks signed him, it was okay. Well, we'll see here, because I think there was a lot of memories from Gallo was okay in that Eastern Conference Finals series against the Bucks in 2021. So people looking at that, like, I remember him hitting some shots against us, and then you just saw like, yep, this is it. Thank you for your service.
The rest of the ball goes in. Don't ask about the rest of the stuff.
You mentioned though some of the changes we've seen from Myles Turner. So I think the one thing, if you are quick to criticize and the fiscal responsibility for the Bucks and say, I don't know if this is going to be enough to make him good, the one thing I've seen everybody point to is the rim protection, and saying, I don't think Myles Turner is as good of a defender or rim protector as he was a handful of years ago. Is that scheme? Is it Myles Turner regressing? Is it accurate? Was Myles Turner never at that level? How would you assess that?
No, he was truly awesome in the past. So in the past, his biggest problem his whole career from an accolades perspective is that his peak defensively came at the same time as Rudy Gobert and Joel Embiid's, and that was in the era where positions mattered for all defense. So he finished 5th in Defensive Player of the Year one year and didn't make an all defense team because there were 2 centers better than him, right? He has multiple top 10 finishes in Defensive Player of the Year and couldn't get on any accolade list for it. Like, he was legitimately that good of a defender for a while. Nate McMillan, when he was the coach of the Pacers, they did a lot of drop, and Myles Turner is awesome in drop. And hey, the Bucks do some drop coverage, so maybe too much. But that will be good. He is very good at that. Like, when he has to turn his hips to corral the guard and stay with the big and keep them both in front of him and like do this whole drop step block thing, he was very good at that. As recently as I'd say like 2020, 2021-ish, he finished 9th in Defensive Player of the year after the bubble, right? Like, he was legitimately a good defender as recently as then. Since then, the Pacers have changed coaches, and he has not. So one, it is partial. It's not all scheme. It's partially scheme, but he has lost a step on that end of the floor, certainly, since then. And they don't, under Bjorkgren and Carlisle, they do not run those coverages. So he's still a very good pick and roll defender in other coverages. Like, he can recover from the top of the key. He's good at, like, people talk about chemistry. They always talk about offense. Like, he's good at getting chemistry with other defenders, if that makes sense, to guard actions well. Like, I think him and Giannis will be really good pairing defensively, certainly. But yeah, he's not what he used to be on that end of the floor. I still think he's an above average defensive center outside of the whole rebounding thing, which we will certainly get to. But he's a deterrent at the basket. In the 2018-19 playoffs, Kyrie Irving was like, oh, dude, our eyes light up when he goes off the floor. Like, we're psyched about the opportunity that comes at the rim. Like, that's what he was at his peak, that Kyrie Irving was excited when Myles Turner left the floor. But more recently, he's, switching is more prevalent. Goofy defenses are more prevalent. Cross matching is more prevalent. He's not that. He's still a good defensive player. Like, he will be an additive defender, but he's more like in the 60 to 70th percentile as a defender, as opposed to the like, this is a top 15 to 10 defender in the NBA he used to be.
So you brought that up, the rebounding part, and it was a familiar cry with the Bucks too, that I think a lot of Bucks fans would look at Brook Lopez's counting numbers and say he's a terrible rebounder. And we would always point out, well, look at the Bucks defensive rebounding rate and look at their rebounding success overall when Brook is on the floor, because he creates those opportunities. Giannis benefited the most from it, to have Brook Lopez next to him. The numbers are pretty comparable. If we just look at the counting stats, is the rest of it similar or not?
It is. So, like, he'll force misses. The Pacers rebound rate was always better with Turner on the floor. Like he'll have a lot of games where he'll finish with 5 rebounds where like he'll be boxing out his man and someone else will get it. And everybody's like 5 rebounds for your center. I'm like, that's still good. Like he did a good thing. He's not a good rebounder. Like there will be a lot of like, oh man, like he's got to get that one. Or just like, how did he not? He was in position. Like, how did he not get that one? It's like against the Bucks, it never popped up, which is maybe why fans don't know because he's going against Brook Lopez, who has similar issues. But yeah, like that, he missed a lot of shots in the finals too, obviously. But that was a very souring moment in the last 2 rounds of the playoffs. Really, is like they're turning to Tony Bradley to get a rebound against the Knicks. They're turning to Tony Bradley to play against Isaiah Hartenstein because Turner is not a good rebounding player. The finals were not like the face of that, and they should not have not kept him because of the finals. That'd have been stupid, but he did not play well in that series, and rebounding was a big part of that. Like game log finals, Myles Turner total rebounds, their starting center, 9 in game 1, good start. Then 4-2-2-6-4-4. Like that is a little on the low side, certainly for a player playing in the upper 20 minutes every night. That is certainly look at. The NBA is changing constantly, but of the traditional center skills, that is by far his worst one, I would say.
Pretty similar to Brook Lopez numbers there that we would see. But yeah, I think that's going to be the most interesting thing for me to follow this year is the Bucks rebounding, because Brook Lopez made them a good rebounding team, and Bobby Portis for that matter, especially when those two are on the floor together. You'd have Brook boxing out. Bobby is good at going to get the ball. So I'm curious to see how that evolves this season for the Bucks. The overall feeling between these two sides, the fan bases, the organizations, and some of the back and forth we heard, even Myles Turner's press conference. You were there in Vegas, and one of the few people that got a shout out by name from Myles Turner. So we'll get into that and just the guy that the Bucks are bringing to the community here and the team coming up after this. So it seemed like there was a lot of obviously shock when Myles Turner left for the reasons we went into earlier in the show on both sides. That we were shocked the Bucks got him. I'm sure Pacers fans were shocked, like he went where?
Yeah, it's both that he left and that he left for.
Well, how much added to that? The fact that if he left, was the fan base mostly, you know what? He gave us a decade of pretty strong play. We loved him. Best of luck, Myles. But then the fact that he went there is where it changed things.
Well, dude, a decade's such an odd spot too, because he's been a starter basically his whole career, like halfway through his rookie year. Like the Pacers are very, and I think this is a good thing, they're strict about like jersey retirements and all that stuff. But like, I don't know how far you have to get as a longtime starter for a good team that makes like that. The Pacers just had their best season ever. Like, how close is he to like legendary status with a franchise? And then it's just like that. No chance that's happening, right? Like that's over. And so that was part of it too. Is just like it felt. Maybe I was a little too bullish on this myself, but it felt like almost fait accompli. It's like, yeah, he'll be back. All right, there's no space for him. He fits very well here. Oh, yikes, that didn't go well. So it's kind of a weird slow play from the Pacers of like, hey, maybe we didn't negotiate great, and also like, holy crap, we were stunned that the Bucks did this, and this came out of nowhere. Like, I think both of those paths have some truth to them, certainly. So yeah, it's both that he is gone because again, 2015 he was starting games for the Pacers. Like that picture of how long he's been playing that everybody was pointing to, it's like him against Tim Duncan on the Spurs. Like it's been, and he's on the Pacers in these pictures. Like it's been that long, right? And now he's on the. It's going to be weird for a lot of fans. And now the Pacers have no idea what to do at center. And I think that's part of it too. Is like it's not like they could just turn around and be like, great, we have cap space instead of Turner to go get someone else. Like they can't. It's Isaiah Jackson and Jay Huff. So it's just it was weird. It was very strange given what his career could have been. And he talked so much about in the last couple of years, which you kind of alluded to off court stuff. We'll get to that. Like he talked about after he signed his most recent extension with the Pacers, realizing how much Indy was a part of him, right? He grew up in Texas. He played at Texas for, 17, 18 years. Then he spent 10 years in Indy, like over a third of his life. And he started to kind of realize that and how much it changed him and who he was. And that kind of made me realize, like, too, he's warming up to the city. and then it's over, right? So he did a lot of good stuff here because of that, especially when he had those realizations and talked about it. But yeah, it was wild.
I mean, in many ways, it's we're not quite there yet, but it's pretty similar to Bobby Portis. And like if Bobby Portis leaves to join the Pacers as a free agent in a year or two, would kind of be the most comparable feeling where, you know, Bobby's been here since the year the Bucks won the championship, but he really, after searching long and hard for an NBA home, found it here in Milwaukee with the way that the community embraced him, and he back as well. So in that sense, like, think about that, of Bobby Portis leaving to go to the team that you hate the most, at least on the Bucks side. I think that's the other interesting part is, is it as much of a rivalry for the Pacers as it is for the Bucks?
Yeah, I mean, I think so a little bit. Like the reason being, one, they've played a ton of big games, right? The in-season tournament 2 years in a row, and then 2 playoff series. You know, I get why you're asking, because the Pacers keep winning the important ones, right? Except for the in-season tournament game last year.
Yeah.
And so in some ways, it's what's the meme? It's like
the NBA Cup, Tony. Come on, show it.
Respect it. Well, okay, when
the
Emirates
won, NBA
when
Cup.
The Pacers won the East, it was the in-season tournament. When the Bucks won the whole thing, it was the NBA Cup. I have to be careful. Both teams think about this fondly for different seasons. So in some ways, because the Pacers have won a lot of the important ones, I forget exactly the meme's phrasing. Ones like, I think about you all the time, I don't think about you at all, right?
Yes.
But it's not that. It is legitimately a thing. And I think it's because of, I mean, almost every game, you've been to all of them, right? There's extracurriculars all the time. Like, it's so obvious these teams hate each other, right? And it's because they've played 20 times in 2 seasons. It's crazy. It's like unprecedented number of games against one team.
I'm glad you said. I agree. It just, the first time I had to question, like, wait, because I think Packers fans are guilty of the same thing too. Like, yeah, I get it's a rivalry, but come on, the Bears suck. We beat them all the time.
Yeah,
for the most part.
exactly.
It's kind of the feeling. But I remember we asked last year before, it must have been game 3. We were talking with Mark Boyle and talking about the rivalry, who's the longtime, voice of the Pacers for over 30 years now. And he kind of said no, where he's like, well, for it to really be a rivalry, you got to, like, we've done this twice, but you got to play in the playoffs more than that. You got to play deeper in the playoffs. Like when we were playing the Knicks in the 90s, a lot of times it was at least the semifinals, the conference finals, once or twice that you had that was a rivalry. We're not quite there yet. And that was the one thing that made me think, like, do the Bucks just have this intense, and Bucks fans have this intense hatred for the Pacers, and Pacers fans are more kind of like, we find them annoying?
So I would agree with that if there was like no in-game tension between the team, if that makes sense. But there is. You know what I mean? You know what the through line is? The starter of it all, the Jordan Nwora trade. That's where this began, obviously.
Oh man, what could have been on both sides for both of us.
He was the fun. Jordan Nwora is a fine player, but I felt bad being like, every time I had a Pacers Bucks question, I was like, well, I have to talk to poor Jordan Nwora because he's played for both teams. All right, guy, come over here.
I think the Bucks fans have been, and I don't mean this as a bad thing, it's mostly a product of where they've been drafting, but they've been guilty of really throwing all their hopes into any young guy that comes along. Like, really, the one that made the most sense was Dante DiVincenzo, but you would have DJ Wilson and just waiting for him to develop into something. Ryan Rollins. Yeah, Ryan Rollins became that guy last year, and that's paying off. But for a short period of time, Jordan Nwora was one of those guys. And I was guilty of it too, of like, all right, the guy he's got a weird shooting motion, but he can score. So, all right. But then you saw the defensive side of things. And his family was very active on social media, because we did a pregame during the COVID year, did a pregame show before the TV pregame show that we just did on the Bucks app. And we started doing player interviews. And one of them was with Jordan Nwora. And I talked with him for like 10 minutes. The most retweets and like comments and mentions of it, I started looking at it and then like started digging down the rabbit hole of who is this person. And one, I think, was his sister. One was his dad, would retweet everything. If you mentioned Jordan Nwora, it was getting retweeted and commented on. So it started to become this thing of, be careful what you say about Jordan Nwora, even if you're using stats to back it up, because his family is going to come after you.
When he got traded in that Jay Crowder trade, he only played like 25 games for the Pacers. The rest of the season. He averaged like 14 points a game. It was like, whoa, this is a guy they should look at. And then they got Obi Toppin and Jarris, and he barely played. But like for a second there, everybody was like, oh, okay, like keep this guy in mind. He's kind of young and decent. And then it never really stuck.
When I mean, really, the rivalry, the seeds of the rivalry were planted when Malcolm Brogdon signed as a restricted free agent, because like that
I
was,
not remember that.
That was like
the handshake ownership sign-in trade that got the Bucks. I forget what pick that became, but
that was very early in the choose your side, because that was the summer that the Bucks had already extended Eric Bledsoe leading into the offseason.
Oh yeah.
So the writing was kind of on the wall. Chris Middleton was a free agent, and that's where we started to see the divide of, is Chris Middleton really worth this? And you had people like, how can you let Malcolm Brogdon walk away?
Brogdon was a good player, certainly. Very weird how that all happened, but Brogdon was a good player.
We mentioned the press conference took place in Vegas. There was no local welcoming for Myles Turner. There was only, I believe, Eric Name, the only local reporter that was there during Summer League, and you were there for it. It was interesting because it kind of coincided with Pacers players specifically going out of their way to not mention him and make some interesting social media posts. Myles Turner kind of danced around some things as well. So just what was the tone and vibe like in that room?
Yeah, he did tiptoe around, certainly. I mean, I think that kind of is revealing, right? About just kind of like the shock seems so extreme. Like he's an unrestricted free agent. It's not like, oh my God, what? But like he's the best player to switch teams as a free agent, right? I think you'd agree with that. So like that's somewhat shocking. It was just kind of different. And I was like, wait, this is like, that's Myles Turner and Doc Rivers, the same podium. What? That was a little shocking. And like the day after was funny because the Bucks were playing in Cox Pavilion and the Pacers were the game right after. And Myles Turner was at the game. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, is he going to stay till right before? Is he going to leave early? That was more of the like, what's going to go on here? He did, in fact, leave with about 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter of the Bucks game. But as for the press conference specifically, it was like, because there was so much national and even media there, like a lot of questions were about the exit more than the entrance, if that makes sense. Like, because there's not a lot of Milwaukee media interested in the entrance part. Eric was there, obviously. There were some. So it was different than a lot of introductory pressers because of that, and because he was the best guy who switched teams. And then, of course, Eric, as he should, to be clear, good job, Eric Name, great reporter, went to the Giannis part of it because it's a big deal, right? It's a big question for the Bucks. So it was just very different than any press conference I've been to, and that it was like clearly the Pacers were interested in what he said, and the Bucks were interested in what he said, but the people there were only a couple people were actually covering the Pacers or Bucks. So it was very different than any introductory press like that I've ever been to.
We're gonna get the schedule tomorrow. Where do you think the first game is between these two teams? Is it an Indy or
drama? Indy would be more fun, I think. I think Bucks fans would like it to be in Milwaukee so that Myles Turner can. I mean, the Bucks are on paper are going to be projected to be better. Vegas has them as better. Pacers fans have made it clear to me many times that they believe the Pacers will be the better team this year. So maybe in Milwaukee, Bucks fans can have their moment. I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean, well, and that part is interesting too, because I mean, I realize 40% of the starting lineup that went to the NBA Finals is gone, at least for this year. But I mean, as we saw, and I think the big message that Bucks fans started to take away from that series last year, and I think you've seen John Horst employ that with the roster building this year, is that, look, we're back into the era where you need depth, and you can't have one weakness that teams can pick at. You need multiple guys that can play that style. So there's more to it than just losing Myles Turner and losing Tyrese Halliburton. They still have very capable guys. As down as the Eastern Conference is, and with a coach as good as Rick Carlisle, they're one of the more interesting teams to me to see what path do they take, and do they choose to just say full on gap year, let's develop young guys and let's just put everything into next year, or do they decide to remain uber competitive in the Eastern Conference? When you look at it and you say, we know two teams should be really good, we think one is going to be much improved. After that, who knows?
Yeah, it's a goofy. I mean, this is the worst the East has ever been, right? Like that I can remember.
That I can remember, certainly, yeah.
I mean, I joked with you before, like it would take probably an injury to a Knicks player, but like the Bucks could get to a 2 seed, 3 seed range like very easily this year with the quality of the conference. So yeah, I mean, I'll be very curious how the Pacers go with that reality too. Like they don't suck without those two guys, right? And if you want to say like, well, they lost both, they should be playing their young guys and make that their priority. They're already doing that. Like those guys already play for them. Besides like Johnny Furphy every game, so like their rotations basically look the same. Besides Halliburton and Turner plus J Huff and Isaiah Jackson. So
well, and like J Huff was an interesting name too. Like,
you know what's funny is like Bucks fans are doing like, oh, Myles was kind of like Brook Lopez, and everybody in Indiana is like, J Huff's kind of like Myles Turner. I'm like, I guess.
Well, I would
not
like,
really true,
yeah,
but
like,
yeah, I guess.
Well, what do you get? Like 50% of 40% of Myles Turner, 50% at best for a fifth of the price, basically.
Yeah, less than a tenth of the price.
Tenth of the price. Yeah.
A little more than that, but yes, yeah, about. I mean, that's what the thought is. His contract is very good. Like that's the appeal of getting J Huff is that if he's any good, like that contract's ridiculous. So
yeah,
we'll see. J Huff doing a backwards dunk against the Bucks is going to be the loudest Cambridge gets early in the season.
I suppose we be remiss not to mention this team. So you've seen them up close for 20 games the last 2 years, and then prior to that, before the group that they closed the season with, you add Myles Turner to that. You take Damian Lillard off the floor. We talked about the Eastern Conference. Realistically, where do you think this puts the Bucks?
Yeah, Indy native Gary Harris. Let's go. Love that. That's basically their rotation additions, right? Everybody else is largely the same. I like so if they can come to Jesus about who should be playing.
Cole Anthony too.
Oh yeah, that's a big deal. Actually, he's pretty good. If they can have a come to Jesus moment about their best lineups and starting games with them, I think the Bucks could be pretty dang good, right? Like, but the people have always. And I get why I've like made the case about like tying the Dame move to Myles. And like technically you have to because one was not possible without the other. But people are like, why would you do that? I'm like, this is like they have at least some percent chance of winning the East. Like it's not maybe not high, but the Cavs are playoff question marks every year, and the Knicks are one injury away from like you and I suiting up. So I do think the Bucks, if they get to what I would consider their best starting five, which probably is some combination of. For me, Ryan Rollins, AJ Green, Gary Trent, Giannis, and Turner would be my five. I don't know if they can like get to that consistently. That's a good team because then your bench has you're subbing in constantly skill. Like Portis has skill. KPJ can score and pass. If Kuzma's in the right role off the bench, he could be helpful. God, that game.
Wow, you're mentioning Kuzma before Cole Anthony. Big believer, huh?
Yeah, Cole Anthony's good, but he's not better than Rollins or KPJ, is he? Right? So, God, that Kuzma game one was just shocking.
We lived through it. I know.
Shocking. I can't like. I don't think he's good. But he's better. He's better than that.
I mean, what?
So anyway, sorry. I think the Bucks can certainly host a first round series, and if not, and win a round at the East this year for sure. More than that, we'll see.
No, not that anybody was talking themselves into Kyle Kuzma. It's a totally different conversation behind the trade. Like Kyle Kuzma for Chris Middleton, yes, you'd rather have one versus the other, but it was everything else that the trade opened up for them. But most jarring was that I think we were starting to talk ourselves into, I think they're figuring out how to use Kuzma here with how they were kind of tweaking some things the last week of the regular season. And the last game, even though it was a garbage game, nobody played. It was the Pat Connaughton 43-point game. Kyle Kuzma had I think it was 19 or 24 in the first quarter. And then it was it. And you're like, all right, he found his shooting stroke and we're good to go. And then game one happens.
I don't want to say sad. Like that sounds so harsh, but it was very shocking that like he scored points in game two and people were tweeting like, oh my God, like that should not be a thing. And I mean, this, you cover the Bucks. The tough part now is I was a Wizards fan as a kid. I tangentially keep up with the Wizards a good amount still. A lot of the rosiest
Kuzma fan, huh?
Yeah. Well, a lot of the rosiest outlooks of the trade were, well, Kuzma on a serious team will be more serious. Look at that. He was good in the playoffs in the championship year. People forgot about the year after, but still It's like, I guess I could squint and get that. But now even that shielding facade is gone, right? The playoffs happened. So unfortunate. He should be better than that in the coming year with an offseason. And he got his number back. So maybe he'll be better this year.
He did. He got his number back. He's the most interesting guy on this team this year.
Yeah, if he's good, the Bucks could be like kind of awesome, right?
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, obviously, let's see what happens with KPJ and how can he ascend. Ryan Rollins, who we're both very high on, AJ Green, and what an increased volume means for him, even Gary Trent. But if Kyle Kuzma is even close to the guy he was that season, the Lakers won the championship, then it becomes interesting to see, okay, they got a lot more depth than we anticipated now with this Bucks team. I guess that's the last thing. So Gary
Harris, make some threes, man. Keep going.
Gary Harris basically taking the Pat Connaughton role. I mean, is this the ideal spot for Gary Harris when you look at some of the struggles with Orlando and the black hole that was their offense? Could we be talking ourselves into wrong spot a couple of years ago, and now he's in the right spot?
I have a very big soft spot for Gary Harris because he's the only NBA player that I ever guarded in a real game in high school. And let me be clear, it did not go well at all. 4 points on 2 possessions for Gary Harris. I wondered if his career
it wasn't 6.
Yeah, true. I wondered if his career would be over. Like, he's barely hanging on in Orlando, so I'm glad he's on a good team again. But it's also good for the Bucks that like the expectations for the Pat Connaughton role is now a minimum player who barely played last year versus a $10 million player who used to be good. Yeah.
Realistically, like, what do you expect from Myles Turner for point? Because he's never averaged 20 in a season. I think 19 was his high.
That's not happening.
Is he going to be the second leading scorer on this team?
Man,
if he is that a problem?
Depends how many points Giannis averages, I would say. That's my answer to that. Yeah, he'll be he'll probably shoot more than he did last year. 12 shots a night, take 6 threes. Yeah, he could be a 16, 17 a game guy, I think, certainly. He is not he's kind of capped in scoring in a way a lot of guys are, in that he can, I guess, create his own shots if he has the right matchup, but a lot of his baskets are someone else does the work and he finishes the play, and he's good at that. But that does put a hard cap on like how often you're involved. You know what I mean? Like, there will be some games if you play Myles Turner destroys the Pistons. Like, the Pistons sag off of him so much because of their scheme, and he takes 8, 9, 10 threes and makes 5 of them every time. Right. In those games, you'll be like, wow, this guy could average 20 and 2 a night. And then they'll play a team with Isaiah Hartenstein or with, the many strong posty bigs who kick his butt, and he'll have 8 points. And it's, he's kind of hard limited by who he is. He'll be in that 17-ish, I think. But I think he'll play, I don't know. I think he'll play about 30 minutes a night and be about what he was statistically for the Pacers. Maybe a little higher on the totem pole, but different shots because he's playing with a different star.
Well, actually, this is the last thing here. It's one thing Camille and I touched on earlier in the off season when this move came to fruition. Expectations for like games played, because I know there was a stretch where he missed a decent amount of time. Not the last couple of years, he's been pretty durable, but that is the one thing Bucks fans need to be aware of. Brook Lopez was in Iron Man. You could pen him in basically every single game. Is that the expectation with Myles Turner?
Yeah, so be wary that in 22-23, let's say, he probably could have played more than 62 games.
Okay.
Pacers may have had some other incentives. But yeah, there was a stretch like in the late 2020s or excuse me, late 2010s and early 2020s where he was missing good chunks of time. And so I wouldn't call him like injury prone, especially because of the last, like he probably that year would have played, let's say 70. So he's at 3 straight years of 70 games, but there was a time before that where that was not the case for him, that expectation. I would say you could probably pen him in for 65 to 70, which is not bad, but it's just the expectation of Brook Lopez was playing 80 games a year. I would say that, yeah, Brook Lopez has certainly probably warped expectations in Milwaukee of games played for centers. Like, centers is the most injured position usually, just because of the amount of contact with it. I would not say that Turner is any more than normal at the position, if that makes sense.
And look, I mean, we didn't touch on Jericho Sims, but you retained him. That you have the Bucks have more
Yeah.
depth in the front court now than they've had because it was always Giannis, Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis. Pray to God we don't have an injury, and now you got another guy in there. So look, the games where you don't have Myles Turner, that's what the regular season is for, to tinker and find what lineups work. And they certainly have those abilities now, even to play smaller with guys like Kuz playing the 4. And Doc has even threatened or hinted at, we think Kuz could play the 5. So they have some options there. I mean, I agree with you. I don't know what the right word is. We've used shocking, stunning in the nature of things, like grand scheme. Shocking, no, but just relative to what the expectations were, shocking.
I mean, I'll admit that I was like shocked when I saw it. Like I was shocked.
Shocked? Were you more shocked that he left for the Bucks, or more shocked that this isn't a sign and trade?
Yeah. I mean, the totality of the 10 minutes of like, wait, what? Wait, like how? Very memorable day. And like, I didn't tweet very much because I was trying to like
to processing and trying to figure out
what is
like,
going
hey,
on. What
here.
happened here? Yeah. Like, how did this happen? And people were texting me like, you're not on Twitter? Like, you saw this, right? Are you okay? I'm like, yes, I'm good. I did not. Very rarely did the Pacers front office. I've kind of figured out what they do, and they're good. They're smart. They built a finals team, right? So the history of them made me think too, like, yes, they understand what to do here. Yeah. I was very surprised personally, but then you figured out what happened, and I guess I get it. It's just surprising.
Okay. One more last thing to wrap with this. I mentioned Myles gave you the shout out in the press conference too. Yep. The guy that is coming to the community for the Bucks.
Good dude, fun dude. Atypical NBA player in that he loves the rock music aspect. Like, I put this in my story about his exit, but I'll never forget. They won Game 6, so that's their biggest game in franchise history in the finals to force a Game 7. And he comes out of the shower and he's getting ready to do media, and he's just blasting "Kiss from a Rose" by Seal on his phone. Right? He loves like rock music, that kind of era of time. Good dude. He started his own Warm Foundation in Indy. He did distribution events all the time, like in the arena at Dick's, whatever, like with kids. That was always very cool. He's just interesting, right? I can't wait for him to do his first. I don't play with Legos, I build Legos quote in Milwaukee. That's always a hoot too. Yeah, he's just enjoyable to be around, like a fun teammate. No, I've never heard of complaints about who he is. And certainly when the Pacers were young, had to grow as a leader. Like, it wasn't like they asked him to, like, it was just like, dude, it has to be you. You've been here the longest. And so he is better now, especially on good teams, at actually having a voice that matters, because he's won stuff now.
He's already been asked about Legos by the Bucks social team. Did he back the fan section in Indy too?
He did. Yeah, they had it was called Turner's Block, and so I don't know if it was free or discounted tickets for those people. They'd come be loud. The Bucks have a fan section, you know how it works. Yeah. Bobby's, right? And then he would cover the rest of the cost. Yeah.
I mean, again, you've heard rave reviews about Myles Turner, the person. You confirm that. So a good fit in the community, and we've talked through the fit next to Giannis, and ideally the guy that replaces Brook Lopez. The most interesting part of
his job now is to get like Giannis into the Clash or something like that. Something hilarious like that.
The most interesting part of all of it that neither of us have the answer to the question of is Giannis recruiting. The more you start to hear about that, recruiting Myles Turner and basically recognizing this is the style of play that works next to me. This is what I need. I need to find somebody younger than Brook Lopez. What does that mean about the future of Giannis in Milwaukee? So that remains to be seen.
Is that a big question that people talk about a lot?
I don't think it's this year. I haven't seen it yet, if it is, but I would imagine at some point it's going to.
We haven't gotten a once every 4 days update about how he's feeling yet this week. So,
well, it's going to be interesting when we run into each other at the arena now. These 4 matchups, and if history's any indication, these hopefully more than 5 matchups in the postseason for these two teams. Again, they're not in the same grouping for the Emirates NBA Cup.
No, what a fail by the league.
Yeah. But yeah,
I could complain about that all day. Why are they not just using divisions anyway? You have groups of 5. Just use those.
And it feels like the Bucks have had at least 2 teams in their group, the same teams for the holdover here. So like, what do we just go to divisions at this point?
I know that when money's involved, they want it to be fairness, but like, okay, some years you have a better chance, some years you have a worse chance. Like, on balance, shouldn't it work out? I don't know. It just seems stupid to me.
Well, Tony, always great to catch up with you. Thanks for
as
the
well.
perspective on Myles Turner, and it should make for some very interesting games in Indianapolis and Milwaukee this upcoming
Finally,
season.
interesting Pacers
Yeah, I
Bucks
mean,
game. About time.
finally, we needed the juice and the charge for this series, and now we've finally gotten it. Again, you can find Tony on the Locked On Pacers show. That'll do it for today's show. We'll take a look at some of the roster rankings for the Bucks coming up on tomorrow's show. For Tony, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow.